Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where I share weekly home improvement tips. This is episode number 1, and this week I'm joined by Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. We're going to talk crabgrass control and some lawn care tips. And this week's sponsor is the Drain Claw. If you have slow or clogged bath drains because of hair, you can check out the Drain Claw at thedrainclaw.com. So the first feeding in spring should include a crabgrass control because crabgrass is very easy to control before it germinates.
What is crabgrass?
Crabgrass is a type of grass. Most people consider it a weed because it's ugly, and what's wild about crabgrass is it releases a toxin and it can kill surrounding grass and plants.
What does it look like?
It looks like, well, the way it got its name is it grows in real thick mats, and then it sends out these runners to help spread the plant, and the runners will spread out and look like the legs of a crab. So that's how it got its name,
That's
crabgrass.
Crazy.
Yeah. So what's interesting too about crabgrass is if you let one of these plants grow to maturity, at the end of the season it can actually release up to 150,000 seeds. So each plant will actually die at the end of the season, and so you don't have to worry about that plant coming back, but because it releases thousands of seeds, that's why it's so important to put a pre-emergent chemical down at the beginning of spring. And crabgrass is something that you have to worry about in most parts of the country. There's parts of Florida and a couple areas where it's not a problem, but in most parts of the country, you're going to want to put down a crabgrass control.
So when should you put down this fertilizer?
I would say March through April, and most companies recommend mid-March through April, but crabgrass control can actually be put down as early as you like. And the way you want to put it down is you want to do all your spring cleanup first. So you want to rake your yard, you want to get up all the old leaves and limbs, anything that's on your lawn you want up, because this chemical needs to be evenly distributed throughout the entire lawn, and it has to get down into the soil. Because if you have areas where you had leaves or debris and the chemical isn't there, that's a perfect place for crabgrass to germinate.
Isn't that true for any type of fertilizer you're putting down?
True, I would say yes. All right, you're right. But especially important for crabgrass control, because like where you'd put a weed and feed down, it's going to be later in the season. You're probably doing your mowing, and so you're probably not going to have this debris down. But the first thing you want to do is clean up your yard, get all the debris off, and then get down your crabgrass preventer, because you need it to get into the soil, and that contact with the seeds is what's going to prevent them from germinating.
So a lot of companies have a step program for fertilizing the whole year. Step 1 would be for crabgrass control.
Right.
Step 2 is a weed and feed. Step 3 is a just regular lawn fertilizer.
Yeah, or sometimes, it used to always be step 3 was an insect control.
But they've changed it over the past couple years.
Which is weird, which is strange. Yeah.
And then step 4 is a fall fertilizer or winterizer.
Winterizer, sure.
So in our experience, though, a lot of customers skip step 1, the crabgrass control.
Right, because they see it as a step 1. They're thinking spring, and there's so much regular growth that goes on in grass that they figure spring rains, grass tends to really green up quickly in the spring. So a lot of people avoid that first fertilizer, figuring they're saving money. But the problem is crabgrass seeds will actually stay viable for up to 3 years. So it's kind of interesting if you start missing these first feedings with a crabgrass control in it, you're just ending up for problems in your lawn with crabgrass.
So even if I do the other 3 steps, I'm still going to have a problem with crabgrass?
Absolutely, yeah, because weed and feed doesn't do anything for crabgrass, and once crabgrass germinates and that plant starts to grow, it's amazingly tolerant to most other chemicals. Now they've got a couple excellent crabgrass control products on the market, but it's hard on the lawn. It's hard to kill crabgrass once it's germinated. So by far the easiest time to control crabgrass is before it germinates.
So you said that a weed and feed does not control crabgrass. What does a weed and feed do?
So most manufacturers, a weed and feed is designed to be put down on actively growing weeds. So this wouldn't be a pre-emergent.
So it doesn't prevent anything
Right,
from growing.
doesn't prevent it. It kills actively growing weeds. So it's a completely different philosophy. And what's weird is you'll see TV commercials for hardware stores, and they'll say, make sure in spring you pick up a weed control. And they're not specifically saying crabgrass control. So people come in, they see weed and feed, and they figure, wow, great, I'm going to kill weeds or prevent weeds, but it absolutely does not do that.
Because we always sold more of step 2 than we did of any other one. So
that's
the weed and feed one.
Right, most popular. But most people either put it down wrong, and we'll talk about that in further episodes, how to put down a weed and feed, or they put it down at the wrong time, which is before any of the weeds start to germinate.
So, the fertilizer's still going to work, but
Right.
the weed
Absolutely.
control product is not doing anything.
Right, so you're spending a lot of money for a weed and feed, and all you're getting is the feed. So don't waste money in spring. Get a crabgrass control, not the weed and feed, until you see the weeds. So the downside of a crabgrass preventer is that grass is so similar genetically to crabgrass. When you put down a crabgrass control, it's actually going to stop most types of grass from germinating. So you're not able to do any reseeding in the spring if you put down this product. And
How long before you can seed?
most companies on their packaging, they'll say do not reseed or even put down sod for up to 3 months. But I've seen 2 or 3 manufacturers, the bag says don't reseed for up to 5 months.
That's crazy.
So, if you're going to be doing reseeding, which is important to a lawn's health, to keep it thick and plush, you want to reseed once every few years. So, in most situations, most parts of the country, if you're putting down your crabgrass control in spring, then you'd want to do your overseeding or adding grass seed to your lawn in the fall.
Okay, so let's talk about Scott's step 1 for seeding.
So, really unique product. So, and I haven't seen any other manufacturers come out with this, but Scott's has the product called...
I just said it.
Yeah, step 1 for seeding. And this is actually designed to target specifically the genetic difference in crabgrass compared to regular grass, and so it will prevent crabgrass from germinating but allow regular grass seed to germinate. And it is very expensive, but what it allows you to do is overseed your lawn or sod, and so you're preventing crabgrass, but you're not worried about adding new grass to your lawn.
So you're still able to buy this with the step program. You're just going to pay a little bit more for that.
Right, and this would be your step 1. So you'd be preventing crabgrass, but then it allows you to overseed and put new grass seed down.
So do you seed first, or do you use this fertilizer first?
Yeah, it shouldn't matter because it has the fertilizer in it. So I would get my seed down and then put your step 1 for seeding down, and then your seeds and the seedlings are going to have those nutrients in the lawn to help really help with the root growth of the new seedlings. Let's talk about how we're going to put the product down. Just as a reminder, you want to do a light raking first, get up any debris that's on your lawn, and a light raking after winter is smart anyway. If you've had snow cover, you want to make sure that you lift up the grass so that there's not matted areas. We want airflow, and we also want that product to get down into the soil so it does its job. There's 2 types of spreaders you can purchase. One is a broadcast and the other one is a drop spreader. And the broadcast spreader will allow you to get the job done much quicker, but it's going to throw the fertilizer 4 or 5 feet wider than the spreader itself. So it's not as exact. A drop spreader is actually going to drop it exactly between the wheels of the spreader, and it's going to allow you to have much better control, especially if you're worried about sidewalks, streets, if you have ponds where you don't want fertilizer going in there. A drop spreader is going to be more exact. I've always preferred a broadcast spreader just because it gets the job done quick, and I've got kind of a big backyard. You have a preference?
I actually like the drop spreader. If I'm spending the money to fertilize, I want to make sure I'm covering the whole lawn. I like knowing exactly where the fertilizer's going. Which,
actually, for the first application for crabgrass, it's actually probably smart because you have more control, and with crabgrass control, you want to make sure that you don't miss any spots on the lawn. So do you have any tips using a drop spreader?
Well, on the lip of the hopper, there are actually 2 arrows that you would use to line up your wheels with. So when you're making each pass, you're making sure that you're covering the whole area.
Because I think one mistake most people make is they follow the track with the other wheel. So they'll make one pass and then they'll put that wheel in that track, and then there's actually going to be a gap because the on a drop spreader the product isn't coming out from wheel to wheel. It's actually inside the wheel. There's a space on each side. You also want to make sure that you look at the bag and see the recommended settings for the spreader depending on the product you're using, because you don't want to over apply.
JC.
Cindy?
If you didn't put down a crabgrass preventer,
Okay.
and now you have crabgrass growing in your lawn,
Right. You're screwed.
So just forget it, move.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but what can you do to control it or to kill it?
I would use
Do you want to kill it?
Yes. Unless, I'll tell you, ancient man.
Well, the plant is going to die.
Right, at the end of the season. Yeah, but what's the problem? It's going to leave 100,000 seeds in your lawn. But ancient man used crabgrass as a food for livestock. Huh. And they still use, to this day...
The ancient man?
Now modern man uses crabgrass for livestock.
Okay, so, didn't I ask a question a while ago?
Crabgrass in your lawn. So if you have crabgrass in your lawn and it's already germinated, companies, you got Bayer, Ortho, Spectracide, Scott's, they make a couple excellent products. And years ago, they only had chemicals that were specifically for crabgrass. And now you can pick up ready-to-use or hose-end sprayers or concentrates that have a blend of chemicals that will kill crabgrass and lawn weeds, wide, broad-leafed weeds like dandelions. But you do need to be careful to read the labels, because some weed killers will kill not only weeds but grass and
like Roundup.
If you purchase Roundup, it's going to kill anything green. So if you spray it on weeds, it'll kill the weeds, but it'll kill the grass too. And then
Weed Be Gone.
Right, a Weed Be Gone is going to kill the weeds, but it's not going to damage grass. So it's important that you're reading the labels when you're at the hardware store. Another thing about crabgrass is it doesn't like to grow in shade, and in fact it has a very difficult time growing in shade, so that's why they really recommend that you leave your grass longer during the summer, all year. It does a couple things. When you leave your grass longer, it's actually much healthier for the grass, and it's much more difficult for crabgrass to get a foothold if it's shaded by a thick, long, regular grass.
Did you know that the length of the blade of grass directly corresponds to the length of the roots?
I did.
Oh, fancy. Now tell me something I don't know.
Well, it's pretty cool. I don't think most people realize that. The longer you let your grass grow, the longer the roots are. So your roots have more surface area to draw water and nutrients out of the soil.
And your lawn is healthier.
And your lawn's healthier. So, it's easier to keep a longer lawn. And so if, in fact, most lawn maintenance people recommend that you keep your lawn about 2.5 to 3 inches long. So you want your mower set up on one of the higher settings. You never want to cut more than 1/3 of the leaf, because that's where it's manufacturing the food, and it kind of goes into shock if you cut more than 1/3 of it off, and then it stops sending nutrients to the roots, and it has to repair itself before it starts producing food for the whole grass plant. So also, if you cut your lawn very short, it leaves the plant susceptible to disease and insects. But you don't want to keep it so long that the leaves are bending over and matting up, because you want airflow. So you're really looking at mowing your lawn as if you're trimming it. You never want it to get so long that you really have to cut a lot off of it. You're always thinking of keeping it trimmed. So a lot of people have a time. They do it once a week on a set day, and that's really not the philosophy. If you want the healthiest lawn, you really want to do it when it's appropriate. So there's times when there's slow growth in the summer, and you can let it go longer. And then in the spring, especially where it's raining a lot and it's growing quickly, or right after you fertilize, sometimes you're going to have to mow it more often, give it a trim so that your lawn's healthier.
I think now is a good time to talk about our sponsor for this episode.
The Drain Claw?
Yes.
This is a great tool. If you have slow or clogged bath drains because of hair, this little tool does an excellent job of grabbing that hair and pulling it out of the drain. And in fact, one of the biggest problems when I was a real estate investor was tenants giving me a call. And in fact, when I had tenants, they actually would have to page me. That's how I didn't even have a cell phone when I was investing. You know what a pager is?
Nope, not a clue.
So they would page me, and one of the biggest problems was just a backed up bathtub. And most of these houses, I invested a lot in the Chicago area, and these older homes primarily had bathtubs, and hair would grab onto those crossbars or under that the bracket that holds the stopper in the bathtub. And as hair builds there, it slows or clogs the drain. And what was interesting is drain openers are actually designed to, because they're heavier than water, they're actually designed to go past that opening and go to the lowest point. And so a lot of chemicals actually don't work for breaking up hair at the opening of a drain. So that's where this little tool, the drain claw, does a great job. So if you have a slow bathtub or slow shower because of hair, you push this little tool in it. It has a tip with 100 interlocking little hooks that you push in, you give it a twist, and it grabs this hair and pulls it out for you. Because I would use needle nose pliers, I'd use a coat hanger, and try to pull this hair out. And it was just a real drag, and it was nasty. But what's nice about the drain claw is that not only is it very effective, but it's reusable. So you can use it again and again. And actually that pouch that they have it in is reusable. So you can store it in this, use it again and again. And you can also use it on the bathroom sink. So if you have a slow bathroom sink, not only will it grab the hair or debris around the stopper, but it'll go past the stopper. It'll go through an opening as small as a quarter of an inch, so you don't have to remove the stopper. And because it's 2 feet long, you can actually push it down into the trap and blow out any buildup there. So it's very cool. If you're looking for a nice tool to have in your toolbox that's going to solve slow drains in your bathroom, this is just a nice little tool to have.
Where can people get it?
So probably the easiest, you can get it at a lot of retail stores around the country, but I think the easiest is if you go to thedrainclaw.com, and it's THE drainclaw.com.
You're gonna spell it the?
Yeah, yeah. No, I don't know whether I enunciate well enough. I would just say thedrainclaw.com, but it's thedrainclaw.com. So that's our sponsor. Great little product. Does an excellent job. A couple more tips for your lawn. At the beginning of the season, on your lawnmower, you should make sure that you sharpen your blade. And you should also, if you have a recycler, make sure that you're cleaning the deck underneath there, that there's no buildup of grass.
What is a recycler? I hear that term all the time.
So a recycler is the same as a mulcher.
Yeah.
So it's grabbing, it's using suction, kind of a vacuum effect. It's pulling up, it's cutting, it's pulling up the leaves, and as they drop, it's cutting them again and again, and it's breaking it down into very small pieces because you want those clippings to be very short. You know, people worry about thatch buildup, and really grass clippings, if they're short, don't add to the thatch at all. So you want to make sure that the underside of the lawnmower is clean, and so if you have a recycler or a mulcher, that it's doing its job and cutting these pieces of grass up into real tiny pieces. And it's actually very healthy for the lawn, most grass clippings. They're pretty much 80% water. There's a small amount of fiber and nutrients in the clippings themselves. So it's not a bad thing to mulch it up. I would also alternate the mowing pattern when you're mowing your lawn because it's just going to look better. Depending on your grass, some grass, if it's longer, it tends to lean in different directions, so it's nice if you break up, alternate the pattern. And
my grandfather, when he would mow his grass, he would do it in a diagonal pattern.
Fancy.
It was. But he'd be really upset if anybody else mowed his lawn and they didn't get the line straight.
Ruined his signature look.
It was. Another tip is if your grass is wet or long, you want to make sure that you slow down when you're mowing, take a slower pace, and then don't cut as wide of a path.
Absolutely. That's excellent because you'll tear the grass or you'll pull it out by the roots, and then the grass is going to go through that repair process again, and it's going to stop producing food. So I think those were some pretty good tips.
I agree.
All right, good. So that's episode 1. And we'll be back next week with more home improvement tips. If you want to check out some home improvement videos, you can go to our YouTube channel. It's called the Fix It Home Improvement channel on YouTube. You can go there and you can subscribe, and you'll get new videos every week. We try to put out at least one video every week, sometimes more. And you can subscribe to this, our podcast, and we would love it if you go to iTunes and leave a great review for us. It helps get the word out.
And thanks again to our sponsor, the Drain Claw.
At thedrainclaw.com.
You're not going to spell it out again?
The, T-H-E, drainclaw.com. I'm sure they appreciate that.
Of course, I'm sure.
All right, well, that was great. Thank you, Cindy.
Yeah, thank you, JC.
I will see you next week.